analysis now with Francesco Rizzuto, who joins us from Liverpool. He's the Dean of the School of Law at Liverpool Hope University. Good to have you back with us, Professor. We have the Constitutional Council striking down large parts of this controversial new law that was passed last year. A lot of people, even from within Macron's own party, saw it as, I guess, pandering to the far-right elements of the country and the parliament. What's your view on what the Constitutional Council has ruled? Is this a positive step in terms of the Republic?
Good evening. I think the ruling this evening it's only just been handed down, by the way, and one has to read all 924 paragraphs to get into the detail of it. But to answer your question specifically, this essentially turns the law into what the government originally wanted it to be. But remember, the governing party doesn't have a majority in the National Assembly. So they sort of put together a law with the support, tacit or otherwise, of the opposition. And actually, the Constitutional Court has struck down 40% of the law that were the amendments proposed by the opposition. So I guess if you believe in the rule of law and fundamental rights, and if you believe that any political system, any democratic political system, must also operate within its higher law, then I think this is a good thing. Frankly, obviously, the debate in France now is how can the democratic will of the people as represented by Parliament be overturned by judges? Well, actually, that's the nature of the system we have. So I think that this is a positive step. I would say that. I'm a professor of law, and if I didn't believe that law should limit the powers of democracies in the sense that you can't have a democratic dictatorship that ignores fundamental rights, then this is a good judgment.
Yes, and we know that France isn't the only country that's currently grappling with this issue of unregulated or irregular migration. Many countries in Western Europe and indeed in the East and even the Balkans are dealing with this very same issue. Do you think as migration continues in this fashion, will we see the rise of the far right across governments on the continent?
I think that there are indications that this is happening, and it is likely that this may happen. We will see it in the European elections in June. But that's the risk that one has to run. But I think that the way you deal with this is first of all to be honest and realistic with the electorate as to what can be done. In other words, that the challenge has to be managed, and actually governing parties need to be able to talk to their populations about this, rather than leaving the ground open to the far right. You know, it's very easy to blame the immigrants for everything, but obviously they're not to blame for everything. So there is a danger. We've seen what's happened in Holland. We've seen what's happening in Germany with the far right. On the rise, particularly in East Germany, and we've seen protests there against what's happening. Of course, in Italy, we have a government that was espousing many of these "Stop the Immigrants" slogans. So, yes, unfortunate. Well, I'm being biased here, but I personally think it's unfortunate that we appear to have forgotten the lessons of the past in terms of the way we see foreigners in Europe. It's regrettable. But I think it has to be combated. It has to be combated not only democratically, but through the rule of law. We have rules, and that's the fundamental aspect to this. No doubt in France, what we're going to see over the next 24 hours is an attempt by the far right to attack. We must change the constitution. The judges cannot limit democracy. Democracy is absolute. We must combat all of this. Well, not really, or I don't think that's going to happen. The idea that they are political judges, I'm afraid, is a nonsense. France is not what Poland was and what Hungary has become. I know I'm throwing that in there, but I think that the Constitutional Court in France has become truly a constitutional
Yes.
court and not just the guardian of what Parliament does, because it's done both today, by the way.
Okay, Francesco Rizzuto, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks, as always, for joining us on